All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. It is episode number 14 of the Still City Insider podcast. I'm one part of this duo, Jeremy Hritz, alongside Jim Wexell of the Still City Insider, and we are excited to be here with you this morning. It's bright and early, Jim, 5 a.m. We're recording a new episode as the Steelers prepare to take on the Titans this Sunday. Jim, how you doing this early morning?
Well, I'm just thankful we got episode 13 and the game that went with it out of the way.
Yeah. You know what? That's the reason why they lost. I completely forgot about that.
Well, we couldn't have done the podcast Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday because we had to recover. That was a long healing process there. That was pretty grim.
And we probably would have not have been in the right mindset. We probably would have been pretty angry. So I think we've probably calm down a bit and we can handle the game a bit objectively. But we're going to
4 days of meditation, prayer, and journaling.
Yes. And burpees too.
You see me at right now.
Well, we are so glad that you're joining us here today. There's only 11 shopping days until Christmas. Make sure that you're getting all your shopping done, your preparations done for the holiday season. But again, we're so excited that you're joining us here today. We want to start by giving shout outs to two of our followers, viewers who are spreading the message of the Still City Insider podcast, commenting on YouTube. The first one is Core 201. Core, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thanks so much for following us and giving us the positive feedback. We appreciate it. And the other is Jamie Komet. Jamie, much love to you for being a supporter. Please continue to share the word of the Still City Insider podcast. And please, we encourage you to comment not only on the podcast and the message board, but also on the YouTube videos. It does mean a lot to us. And I did mention there's 11 days into the holiday season. I would be remiss if we didn't bring up Jim's book, Palomalu. If you're looking for a great gift for the Steelers fan in your life, or even for yourself, Palomalu is that book. Jim, do you want to talk about Palomalu?
Well, I tell you, I'm writing another book right now, and I miss working on my Palomalu book. And I like this book. Don't get me wrong, but you know how when you're reading a book, you get lost in it, and life just doesn't go so well, and you can't wait to get back into your other world, which is your other book. That's how I felt writing that book. And usually writing is just a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And then you edit and you smooth and you try to make that world right for the reader. But I got into that world when I was writing, and it was so fun. And another thing here, this is good. The Chase Claypool and the culture change, because Tomlin now brings in bad people, right? It's, when Hines Ward and Aaron Smith and all those guys left, they decided to start bringing in worse people. But my point on all that with this culture change, I think it's nonsense. It's that it diminishes how special the group, the Palomalu group, was. You can't just replace them with new draft picks. It's why it's hard to win 2 championships in a few years. It takes a special group of people, and this chronicles that group really. I think it's the only book written about the 2000 Steelers. And so I encompassed a lot of stuff in that. So I think it's a great read, and the hard copy will be out of print after this Christmas, soon thereafter. And I would get it. I think it's a collector's item. I do. There were 10,000 made, and you can get it at Amazon or jimwexell.com. I can autograph them or sign them to you.
Yeah, and I can personally attest to it. I've read the book. I read it actually last summer. Phenomenal. Really, that's how Jim and I met and how this thing all started. The other part too, and this is just a secondary feature because it's about the content of the book, but the cover is beautiful. The image is just, it's amazing.
Well, the cover and the pictures of his childhood, I mean, those are unique pictures. You want pictures of him with the Steelers, click on your internet and Google it, and you find them all. But these were childhood pictures, and all the quality that was put into the book. It's a heavy book. It's a black cover like a Bible with gold Palomalo. I think it's beautiful. And thank you for saying that about the cover. Yeah, our graphic designer was fantastic, and she would appreciate that. And the entire book is quality. It's quality. It should sell for $40, but I couldn't do that. So I sold it for 33, and there's a few number 33 references at the end. And but now I'm seeing all kind of books for 40, $50. You know, I don't know if I'm not taking a loss, but I couldn't sell for 40 at the time. And now I paid $50 for the Jim Morrison book, so yeah.
Awesome. So be sure to check that out. Again, great gift for the Steelers fan in your life. And let's jump into it. We have 4 games to go before the Steelers season concludes. The Steelers are at 6-1. We're going to dig into this Minnesota Vikings game. And really, it was the tale of 2 halves. Really the tale of 3 quarters and then the 4th quarter. But it didn't start so well. The run defense of the Steelers, once again, just is abysmal, abhorrent, whatever adjective you want to use here. The running lanes for Dalvin Cook were massive, and they just gouged the Steelers. And then in the 4th quarter, Big Ben makes a run, and we see this team valiantly try to come back. So we're going to dig into this game by themes today instead of going offense and defense, and try to take a look at where things went wrong, if things are correctable, and where they go from here. And we're going to jump in with the first theme, and that's the rush defense, which really has hindered this team all season. A lot of it is attributable to injuries on that defensive front. Some of it could be attributed to personnel and lack of moves made this offseason in terms of depth. But Jim, looking at that Vikings game, that rush defense, what did you walk away from it thinking or saying to yourself those past 4 days?
I rewatched it last night. It took me that long to get back to the tape. I went to bed at halftime again. I forgot they came back. No. Troy Aikman was just astonished. Look at these lanes. There was the one they had Marcus Allen in, and they had Cam on the nose, and they pushed everyone overload to the left of the defense, the right of the offense, and they ran left right through this gaping hole. I mean, I know Marcus Allen blitzed, and I don't know if Marcus Allen was doing what he was supposed to do. I don't know if anybody did what they were supposed to do, and there's also this fact. There's potential scheme lapses and individual player lapses and new player lapses like Marcus Allen and injuries. That Thursday night game after playing the Ravens, they've never done that. Not after the Ravens. And I remember I was at the Ravens game and talking to Cam and Ben, both of those guys. You brought up Thursday night's game. They rolled their eyes. I said, this is not good. They would say, we'll get back up for this. We got to win this game Thursday. But you could tell they were whipped from that Ravens game. And they really, in their mind, they knew how hard this was going to be to get this thing ready for Thursday. And wow, for that first half, you could see it. I've seen that in Thursday night games, especially from visitors. I think the last time the Steelers whipped Carolina 50-20, it was like 50-0 for a while, and Carolina made their big run once they got loosened up.
Yeah,
you have this stuff on Thursday night, especially with the visiting teams. Apparently, that one last day is critical, where you have to travel to Minnesota, where they're still getting another day of sleep, recovery, food, hydration, little practice. So I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but those Thursday night games are brutal, and their run defense is savagely brutal. My God, I'm doing this new book, and it's about the history of the draft, and I can do it however I want. And I'm on Ernie Stautner, who's going to represent the 50s for me, because I have not found much on Ernie Stautner. The only other guy to have his jersey retired except for Joe Green. And he was drafted in 1950. And I remember the Steelers had a good defense in the 50s, but I kept thinking, 54 is that number I keep bumping into when I look at the record for the worst run defense ever in Steelers history. I'm not going to count 1934. That's the actual worst number. But 1954, they allowed 4.8 per carry, And I believe the Steelers right now are up to 5.0 for the season.
Yeah.
It's like 5.6 for the last 9 games. These last couple games have not been an aberration. The fact that they stopped Baltimore tells you how terrible Baltimore is right now. But so I get to 1954 and I'm like, Ernie Stautner, the 50 Steelers, they were rugged. Jack Butler, Dale Dodger. Well, why was that run defense so bad? Well, they had in 1950 just opened the rosters up to 40-man rosters, and teams just started 2 platooning, and the rich teams could do it and have depth. Well, the Steelers weren't one of the rich teams, and they had no depth at all. And by the end of the year, they had started strong, but the end of the year, their defense was in tatters. They were hurting. And that's how they set the record for the worst run defense. Goes back to 54 when they had no money for backups. And you watch these backups right now, you think the same thing.
Yeah.
You think, wow, the salary cap really has cost them in their ability to bring in quality depth. And it shows. It shows.
Yeah. Is there anything, so I've been racking my brain for how they can improve this rushing defense over these final 4 games, thinking of things in terms of, if the offense starts faster, does it maybe force the offense of the opponent to try and score quickly and get them out of the running game? Do they do something where they reconfigure their defensive front? And I know you can't shift schematically to 4-3 at this point in the season, but can you get creative where you're putting some of your outside backers down on the defensive line? Is there anything that they could do in terms of just schematics with the personnel they have, or just being creative to try and change things? Or is this what we see, what we're going to get these final 4 games in terms of rushing defense?
Well, their nickel is a 4-3, 4-2-5. And with the 5th DB is the Mike Hilton. Supposedly Mike Hilton is a mini linebacker. And that position really hasn't been filled, but you see Arthur Mollett blitzing every now and then. But so the 4-man front has been used. They've tried a lot of things. What you're looking at is Mike Tomlin's defense, and he's trying to beat the passing offenses with faster pass rushers everywhere. He does not bring big fat defensive tackles in. If you noticed, his first couple of camps, he was down on Casey Hampton big time. It's almost like he's a fatist. So he's got all these little hybrids. Each position he wanted to get quicker and rush the passer more and cover better. And so look what he's got now. Joe Schobert left Cleveland because he wasn't more physical enough in the run game. And Mike Tomlin says, hey, man, he causes fumbles and intercepts passes every time we play. So they bring in a pass coverage guy to play next to Devin Small. Not is exactly a pass coverage guy because he's too short, but he gets to the flats and he can run around. He can run. And Cam, he wanted to move Cam Hayward further inside. And, this is Mike Tomlin's defense. A concentration on safety play. Well, I don't know. I don't know who's leading the team in tackles. It has to be Minka.
It's
maybe
Minka.
Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah.
And that's really not a good thing. It shows that Minka is rugged and can play. And Minka looked good last game.
Minka
did.
Had
a good game, even though some things went wrong. But, I really think Mike needs to consider bringing in a top flight coordinator to run his defense as LeBeau did.
Yeah.
I don't see it being fixed this year. But again, I temper this with it was a Thursday night game. It's not going to look this bad again, especially against Tennessee with 10 days rest. But it is statistically a horrible run defense. Yeah.
So, can they do, not to go back and belabor the point, but do you think that they can at least be average at this point? I'm not looking for them to be good or great, and I don't think fans are either, but even average would allow them to compete.
When they're not on 4 days rest, and when TJ's playing, who else is hurt? There's really not that many people hurt.
Can I say to it? But I think that's a wrong conclusion at this point.
Coach doesn't even want to hear questions about him. I can't say that I blame him. He's probably just as frustrated, more frustrated than any of us. They're going to have to, they'll have more money in the cap next year, and he's got to realize he needs more beef in the middle. Henry Mondo is the most beef they have, and he's a taxi squad player. He's just playing with first snaps. I don't know what to tell you. Their outside linebackers, when they go 4-3 in that nickel, and Tushka, who's built like a safety, is a defensive end. That's what Tomlin's theory and thinking and defense has brought us to. Right. Hey, you look at that defensive end for the Giants, the 6th round draft pick the Steelers cut.
Roche.
Better, yeah. Now he has an NFL defensive end's body. Maybe he couldn't get back in pass coverage to satisfy them as a linebacker. I'd rather have him than Tushka right now, number 48.
Yeah.
I don't mean to beat that kid up. I don't know who he is really, out of North Dakota, something. But he's built like a safety, and he's playing defensive end in their nickel. I mean, come on.
Yeah. A couple things that you hit on there. You mentioned Minkah Fitzpatrick, who seemed to be all over the field this past weekend. I think this game for me, I know I was a bit skeptical of his play early on this year, but man, he showed a lot of heart this past weekend in terms of just want to and desire. It seemed like he was around every tackle, and on some of those big runs, you could see his frustration coming through. The players were missing their assignments, but man, he solidified for me that the contract extension for him is worth it, because he's a gamer.
Yes, he is. He really, really is. In all facets. We get on him for missing tackles. Only because when you're a safety and you miss a tackle, it's like the goalkeeper making a mistake. You know what I mean? I know all about that. No one's looking at the forward to turn the ball over. So Minkah's a tremendous player, and he will be the glue. He'll be the glue when this gets turned around.
Yeah, he's definitely a young guy that this team can build on moving forward in terms of the roster. Then the last thing I just wanted to talk about was the inside backers, Joe Schobert, Devin Bush. It seems like Devin Bush maybe had a little bit better of a game, and I think Schobert got sat down at one point against the Vikings. But it was interesting. Yesterday, Devin Bush was interviewed via Zoom, and he had some interesting comments. And I believe his comment about his knee was, if you get bit by a dog, it's a while before you're not afraid of the dog. It's not verbatim what he said. But then he also made a comment too, when asked about his performance. And he said that, nobody on the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is performing well. So an opportunity for him to own, his poor play on himself, and that self-accountability, he spread it out to the team. Did you think that Bush played better this past weekend? And then your take on his comments.
What else was he going to say? The point about there's nobody up front to take on blocks for him. Cam, that's it. So I can't fault him for saying nobody's playing well, because nobody is playing well. Take a little more accountability, yeah, but he's taken a lot of heat. He's a young guy. I was kind of looking to see if he had quit and checked out on football. We had talked about that.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that. I don't know if passing the blame signifies that. I wasn't troubled by anything, and I expected that kind of interview to go that way. But I like to see he had some fight in him. I like the fact that he actually showed up for it.
Yeah.
After that game, and I don't think he was the main problem. I don't want to even say Schobert was the main problem. Buddy Johnson replaced both Bush and Schobert, so there was equal sitting down. And then when Marcus Allen was in there with Buddy, they're trying their best to make Marcus Allen a safety into a linebacker. And wow, I don't know how much longer this experiment can last, but that's not an answer there.
Yeah.
Buddy Johnson, he was the guy that talked Witherspoon into going and taking that stupid camera picture in the end zone. Buddy, no. I can see how Witherspoon was talked into it. Oh, is this what we do? It's my turn to do this? Dudes, don't do this. It's 29-7.
Yeah.
So, I wrote down who was in that picture. I paused my TV. everybody thinks the Steelers defense, it wasn't Joe Hayden, it wasn't Cam Hayward, it wasn't TJ Watt taking a picture after a pick down 29-7. It was Justin Lane, Arthur Mollett, Buddy Johnson, Trey Norwood, Terrell Edmonds, the only veteran, Witherspoon, of course, and Devin came late. I don't know. I think
superstars.
Minka came later to disperse the crowd. You idiots, it's 29-7.
The motley crew.
Witherspoon's second pick, he wanted to go do it again. If you look at that tape, and it was like, no.
Yeah. He did play well. I'll give Witherspoon credit. I know the week prior we were talking about him, and you talked about that play on the tight end there for Baltimore, but he had another good week. Maybe he's a piece they could build around. I know he's not signed after this year, but potentially they could look at keeping him on the roster.
Yeah. Okay. Justin Lane is not doing it. Covering number 18, Jefferson, was difficult, and Witherspoon can't. Across the field with the moves, it was he can't. He's not that corner. Maybe a piece, but I'm not going to get carried away. But Justin Lane is not looking like a ball player.
Yeah.
So
yep.
He's better than Justin Lane. Let's go there. And James Pierre's not even playing anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. All right. Shifting gears. I'm going to combine these next two themes, theme 2 and theme 3 here. It sounds like Dr. Seuss. The poor pass protection, and then Big Ben's fourth quarter play. We saw Ben get beat up and just smashed worse than he's been hammered all season. But then miraculously, really the last 2 minutes of the third quarter and that entire fourth quarter, he was just golden magic. I don't even know how to describe it. But your assessment of that offensive line and the pass protection, and then Ben's play fourth quarter. And then the bigger question here, does this change anything for Ben next season?
I don't think so, but he's throwing a lot better than he did last season. That throw to Freiermuth in the end zone at the end. I mean, yes. Come on. I don't think Brady makes that throw. Wow.
Yeah.
And he trusts his jump ball guys, and his jump ball guys came through. James Washington and Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson. He goes up and grabs a ball with people all over him too. And Freiermuth, there were some beautiful passes. And the protection, I mean, he walked off the field one time, snapped at Tomlin. I can't wait to find out what that was. But I mean, really, get something out there. That Trey Turner allowed the defensive tackle in front of him to just go, unimpeded. A defensive tackle, I could see if it was a blitzer, somebody that confused him. That offensive line is confused. I don't know if it's the coach. I don't know. The offensive line experts I know seem to think that the coach is very poor. I don't know. I threw it out there. I know I'm responsible for saying that, but they don't like to. When they hire an assistant coach, they like to see him fulfill their 2-year contract. I don't know. I don't. You would hate to see them to hold on to somebody that's not a good coach just to fulfill the 2-year contract.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that will happen. I don't know how much to blame Clem has to do with it. Adrian Clem. The more experienced line coach is his assistant. I don't know what will happen with that. But, and I tell you, Minnesota was loud. And again, Thursday night, not enough practice. So there's some built-in excuses, but some of that play at the end, it was done well. Najee picked up the blitz on the Freiermuth play. If you watch that play again, watch Najee pick up the middle blitzer. Oh, did he fight his rear end off? So it got settled down by the end. But man, and Leglue, I think is another piece. I think, I don't know that he's going to be a starter, but I think you found a player here. And for whatever reason, he was out for a series. And Rashad
Coward.
He let somebody come in easily and got Ben crushed on a 3rd and 10 play. And he just got flattened. And Coward, I don't even know if he got out of his stance. Wow, what is he doing in there? Maybe LeGlue was hurt. Maybe they wanted to teach him something. Maybe they wanted to get Coward a series. I don't know.
Yeah.
But man, that was grim.
Yeah. Yeah. And, with the pass protection, again, I haven't seen Ben get beat up that bad. It's probably been a few years, but can they going back to the question I asked about the rush defense, is it time to make some adjustments? And I know I talked about Zach Banner kicking into right tackle, moving Chooks over to the left side, because Junior there on the left side, Dan Moore, didn't have a great game, but again, nobody really had a great game. And then Kendrick Green, I mean, how many more times is this guy going to get blown into the backfield, into the snap for a handoff before he gets sat down? So I know Tomlin said
I'm sticking with Kendrick Green and Moore. I definitely sticking with Moore.
Mm-hmm.
There were some moments I thought Moore looked really good.
Mm-hmm. So what would there be any time where you would consider making an adjustment and just trying to change the lineup up to see if that has any type of spark for the offense? Or do you feel like you just ride with these guys no matter what through the end of the season?
Well, I'll defer to them on Banner because nobody's really seen him.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the only possible change. The general's coming back this week. I like LeGlue. I like LeGlue.
Mm-hmm.
You want to change Banner for Chooks? I would have no problem if you have solid reasoning as a coach. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I see no moves to be made. I don't. Hey, maybe LeGlue's a center. I don't know, but I'm not going to mess with Kendrick Green either. And it's not every time he gets blown back, but when he does get blown back, it pops on tape. So yeah. I understand your frustration with him, but I'm sticking with him. Mm-hmm. They've gone through all this with him. Might as well ride it out.
Yeah. Now, do you think that's? I mean, we've seen poor pass protection, not to this level. Can they clean it up a bit, or do you go back to and not that it's an excuse, but the Thursday night, the quick turnaround? Do you think it was just a matter of not being prepared for the blitzes that the defense was throwing at him? Or
that's a good point. Zimmer's a good defensive coordinator, and he's their head coach. And it was indoors. You'd have to look through the schedule to see when Kendrick Green last played in an opposing indoor stadium. And, I'm giving him excuses, but that had a lot to do with him not getting the ball when Ben wanted it. I mean, Ben's back there stomping his feet. I thought he was going to go up and kick him right in the rear end.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tweaks. We'd have to bring Wolfley in for this. We got to get Wolfley for this podcast to talk O-line. Maybe that'll be our first post off-season podcast.
That'd be awesome.
Talk offensive line. Yeah.
He get up at 5 a.m.
I'm not going to put it past him, but I don't think we have to get up at 5 a.m. in the off season, do we? Can't we do these on Saturdays?
We could shift to a Saturday schedule. Yeah, I go to my real job around 7, so that's why we're up so early here. Just going back to Big Ben, again, he's been on fire. And again, just to reference that pass there at the end, and Pat Freiermuth, not Freiermuth's. I don't want to fault him at all because he played a solid game and he gave the Steelers a chance and he didn't hold on to it. I'm sure that'll drive him moving forward. But going back to what I said earlier, and all this talk about bringing in a free agent quarterback this offseason, I think this game for me solidified that maybe I've been a little harsh in my criticism of Roethlisberger last year and this year, and that maybe it really does fall on that offensive line. And would it make sense? And I know that whatever it was leaked to the media that Ben is going to retire after the season, but does the organization have a conversation with Ben? Hey, if you want to come back, the door's open. Then you could draft a guy, maybe let him grow behind Roethlisberger for a year because he's still showing he can play. You invest in the offensive line, and then you maybe take another swing at it. What are your thoughts on that? Or do you think that ship has sailed?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's up to Ben. And I don't think he wants to come back. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, what was the question? Is Ben coming back?
I mean, would he consider coming back just based on his play here recently if they retooled the offensive line?
You know, he's taken a horrific beating his whole life. This isn't getting beat up like he did the other day isn't new. You know, you had the Arians, even when they had a decent line, the Arians philosophy got him beat up. And then there were the Ravens, the real Ravens, you know, or first series, Haloti punch. Haloti Nada punches you right in the nose and breaks your nose on the first series, and you're swimming in blood the entire game. That was a savage group, and he went through that. And the 2008 team had a horrific offensive line, got beat up by the Eagles, if you remember that. He's probably still hurt from that.
Oh, yeah.
He's taken a beating his entire career. He looks too slow. I know that the coordinator wants a mobile quarterback in his style of play. There would have to be a lot of talk. Ben would have to be excited. And I don't even think he wants to, let alone whether he's excited, because it's going to take a lot of work. And I would like to see a new start myself. But I mean, he's throwing great. He's throwing great.
Yeah.
He even ran for a first down, 4th and 4.
I forgot about that.
But I don't know. I don't think he sure wouldn't want to do this year all over again with these new offensive linemen. That offensive line is going to be much better next year.
Yeah.
So that could be a chip in your bargaining favor if you want him back. But you know, there are other things that are going to get better too. Fryermuth's going to be a much better blocker. The fringe stuff. You know, Najee missed some blocks this year where he won't. You can see he has the skill and the want to, but he just needed the experience. So they've got now experience at tight end and running back. So things like that. I have a feeling they're going to get one pillar on their offensive line to build around. And these other guys now are not going to be rookies. So, you know, Dan Moore and Kendrick Green and LeGlue and Dotson, those guys are going to be better versed, and they'll bring along that pillar until the pillar, if it's a first round pick, if it's a DeCastro type at right guard, he'll need some veterans around him, but he'll eventually be the guy. So there are some things to look forward to, and maybe Ben will be interested in that, but I'm not going to go out of my way to talk a 40-year-old quarterback into coming back for 1 year. I'm really not.
Well, it'll be something interesting to monitor here over these final 4 games. Hopefully it's not the final 4 games. And speaking of those 4 games, Jim, where do they go from here? I know we talk every week about the path forward and can this team make the postseason, but you have 2 home games left. You got the Titans this weekend, then at the Chiefs the day after Christmas. Then it's the Browns on Monday night in Pittsburgh, which potentially could be Roethlisberger's final game against a team he has owned his entire career. And then they close out at Baltimore. And there's some uncertainty surrounding Lamar Jackson and his ankle. So how do you see the path forward playing out? What do you think over these next 4 games in terms of their chances for the postseason?
Yeah, they still have chances. I just got my daughter, don't tell anyone, I just got my daughter a Christmas present to the Browns game. On Monday night, her and her boyfriend got them tickets.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I might not be able to put this one up on Facebook, but
we won't publish it.
But you know, it's one game at a time, and this 10 days off, you're going to see a completely different team. Plus the embarrassment, I expect a change or two and some sharp criticism both ways. You know, the players are going to want better coaching, and the coaching is going to want better players. And I think I think they have a chance to beat Tennessee. And it's going to be at home, 10 days rest. So is Derrick Henry playing? I haven't looked that far.
He is not playing.
So, I mean, you know, if what's his name? The running back for Minnesota could gain 400 yards. Henry, and if the game was closer, that kid would have had 300-yard game.
Yeah.
And you know, Derrick Henry's even better and bigger. You know, can you see how these little linebackers, you know, TJ will be back. So I think they can beat Tennessee, and then they could be 7-6-1, and then we take a look around, see which way the wind blows. Maybe Kansas City has a problem, or, you know, Kansas City's going to be tough to beat.
They're going to be tough.
The other teams, Cleveland's a Monday night game at home.
Winnable.
Win, sure.
Yeah.
And then you go to Baltimore, who, you know, they look terrible. I would assume I would make Baltimore the favorite, just because these two teams have to split.
And I was thinking of this, Jim, and I wanted to mention this. How fitting is this? Is that potentially Roethlisberger's career began against the Ravens whenever Maddox got knocked out. His final game potentially could be against the Ravens. So talk about a career coming full circle. Now, hopefully that's not his final game, but I thought that's a unique storyline to kind of put the cap on his tail.
And maybe Haloti Ngata and Bart Scott and those guys could come and take their free punches at him one more time. And you know, these Ravens right now, they're as nasty, maybe not as talented as that bunch, but yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those games were ugly, but yeah.
Yep. They were something, that's for sure. All right. And before we hit the terrible three here, I've been profiling quarterbacks for the 2022 draft, and I didn't put this in the agenda, but I know we talked about Kenny Pickett. So just briefly, just to give an overview of Pickett, he didn't win the Heisman. The quarterback out of Alabama won, I believe his name is Bryce Young. That guy put up some great numbers, but Kenny Pickett, 6'2", 225, runs an estimated 4.77 40-yard dash. He's a mobile guy who can move around in the pocket. He's not a runner like a Malik Willis or a Desmond Ridder, but he can definitely, buy some time to open up a play down the field. And if you watch that ACC championship game against Wake Forest, he introduced a new play called the fake quarterback slide, which resulted in I believe a 58-yard touchdown run. And then that play was banned in the NCAA. So it's the Kenny Pickett rule. You can't fake a slide anymore. So he does have mobility. He can move around in the pocket. He's more of a pure pocket passer. He's not going to give you anything in terms of a rushing attack. In terms of his passing game, he's got a good but not elite arm. He has the ability to go through his progressions on the field. That's one of the things that's really separated him this year in terms of his previous years is he can scan the field and doesn't just lock on to his first receiver. He could fit the ball in the tight windows. One of the criticisms of him is that, prior to this year, he hasn't really put up a big statistical season. So some of the critics are asking why the lull in production junior year and earlier, and why the explosion in production this year. Questions about his hand size. They're smaller than what's desired in a prototypical quarterback. But Kenny Pickett, the main thing about him is he's a gamer. He's got the intangibles. He's a leader. And I know he'd be a guy that I would, and maybe I'm in love with the narrative and the whole folklore around him, but a later first round pick, I wouldn't be disappointed or upset if the Steelers went that direction. So there you have it, Kenny Pickett. We're going to talk more about him as the year goes on, but definitely an exciting player in college football.
Well, I have been saying, I probably have said it on this podcast to you, that I think he's a late second round guy. And my opinion has moved up, and I would consider him in the first round. Yes, I would consider him. I don't know that I'd consider him top 15 if the Steelers finish up there, which I don't think they are. But I would consider him in the first round. Yes. I worry about his size. I don't believe he's 6'2", but he could be 6'1", and his hands, if they're as small as people are saying, that could be a problem holding NFL footballs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I do believe that he did not fake on that run play. I believe he just changed his mind.
Yeah.
I do. He was going to go down. I like his savvy on the run, but I don't think he's that plotting. What's the word? Manipulative is not the right word. I don't think he's that calculating.
Duplicitous.
Duplicitous is a good one. No wonder you're a principal. I don't know.
I was
that
an English major first.
Calculating. I don't think he calculated that. I think it was on the run. I think he was going to go down, and then, well, why go down? And he just kept going, because he could have cut his ACL the way, it was a little shake there. That whoa. Yeah. Okay. So you got me interested.
Yeah, I really like how he always. I forget, after the one game he said he wanted a cold one. So props to him for that. Seems like
All
a
right,
down to earth
well, I'm
kind
on
of guy.
Bobby Lane. I'm on Bobby Lane in the 50s too. Let's not go that far. We got Chase Claypool problems as it is. So I don't.
Hey, and speaking of Chase Claypool, perfect time to start the terrible three. So are you ready?
Called a segue. Yeah.
All right. Yes.
Go ahead.
Perfect.
I'm a pro.
All right. You are. I'm the amateur here. All right. So Chase Claypool, I mean, gets the first down with barely any seconds left on the clock, points for a first down in celebration. Will he ever mature, or is he just clueless?
You know, you expect this out of wide receivers. Let's just start there. Right. And I go back to my culture change. This isn't so much a culture change. It's the position. It's always been the position. He really makes some great plays. Yeah. Before his fourth down idiocy, and where he pointed for the first down and wasted a play. They had one more. They would have had one more play to run in that game after Freiermuth drop. But he made a great catch on what was supposed to be a pass interference. I can't believe he held on to that ball. Yeah. He fought through the pass interference. You know, there are so many people that quit when they're interfered with and look to the ref instead of trying to catch the ball and, you know, forget about it. He didn't look to the ref. He caught the ball and yeah. he didn't gloat, no histrionics on what was just a great catch. He can run after catch, seems to be tough. And of course, you know, they were asked, have you worked on this in training camp? Do you know about the clock? I mean, they do the 2-minute drill just about every other day at training camp. Yes, and they stop and they holler at these guys, and nobody's doing that during practice. Mm-hmm. You know about hurry and get back to the huddle, race that ball in. They all know about that. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
The other, so that was a problem. Yes, and I think he'll learn from that. This blowback is intense. It's not nearly the blowback in the offseason when he was caught on video kicking somebody who was beaten up, kicking them in the head as he left. It was an ugly brawl. And you think, wow, he'll learn from that. He's 22, 23. Boo, there wasn't that much blowback. This is getting a lot of blowback. He has no choice but to learn. But I tell you what, you know, he had a rough opening start where he had that unnecessary roughness penalty. He tried to stick his finger in the guy's ear, something. But the guy started that. The guy, I don't know if you noticed, they never showed the very beginning on the replay where the guy was pawing at the ball after the play was blown way dead out of bounds. Mm-hmm. And so that's what got the finger in the ear. And then the guy hit back right in front of the ref. So that was a bad play. And then 2 plays later on 3rd and 1, he blows a block that cost them. They lost yardage on the run. Mm-hmm. It was his fault. And then he got yanked for a little bit. And then they showed him on the sideline. They showed Tomlin giving some kind of instruction or chewing them out to the receiver right next to Claypool. Ray McLeod was next to Claypool, and there was another receiver, Deontay Johnson. And Deontay Johnson was looking straight at Tomlin, and McLeod was looking up every now and then. He was fixing his shoes. Claypool had his legs crossed and looking at the scoreboard, just not paying attention to the head coach at all. That I didn't like. I don't like that. And I don't even know what was going on, but young receiver got to be listening to the coach when they're down 29-0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even DJ, even McLeod, who wasn't even looked like part of the conversation, kept looking up. And McLeod's turning into a ball player.
Yeah. He has played well. He has played well. So I guess that's a sacrifice.
A lot more confidence. Yeah.
Yep. Sacrifice. We have to accept Claypool's tomfoolery for Ray's progression, I guess.
I don't know what to say about Claypool, but you know, they ran Plexico out of here, and I was one of the guys that ran him out. They have Antoine Randall. Mm-hmm. And Ben has really never replaced him until Claypool with that tall receiver that Ben likes so much, the tall receiver deep.
Mm-hmm. When I think of Plexico, I think of the Jacksonville game his rookie year where he spiked the ball.
Spiking a live ball. Yeah, in celebration, same kind of thing. Idiocy, but, you know, Plex came back later, and really, he wasn't a bad guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't an idiot. I mean, though some things happened to him. I mean, he got arrested for, I mean, he shot himself with a gun that was strapped to his underwear.
Can't make this stuff up.
That was in New York, so I don't know the full details, but he was in jail for a year, I think, or something.
My
So
gosh.
he's done some pretty idiotic things, but Ben always wanted him back, and they tried to get him back, and he was just over the hill by then.
Yeah. All right. Question 2. Speaking of Ben, so we talked about Ben's play here, and then potentially how this could impact 2022. Putting you on the spot. Do you bring him back? Yes or no?
I don't want to diminish how well he's playing right now, but no.
All right. To the point, concise.
It's time. We talked about it already, and Ben's the guy that I doubt wants to come back. He gave no indication to any of us local reporters throughout the first half of the season that he wanted to come back. He never corrected any reporters, any of us who just assumed that this was his last year. He never corrected, and he loves to correct us.
Yeah.
And then the national report, I don't see him coming back.
Yeah. All right. And then our final one for the terrible 3. So it's Bud Dupree's homecoming this weekend as the Steelers get ready to take on the Titans. The Titans signed him to a massive contract this past offseason. He was paired with TJ. They were buddies in the pass rush. So there will be somewhat of a unspoken competition this weekend. And Bud hasn't had the best of seasons. Who has more sacks this weekend? Is it Bud or is it TJ?
TJ's fighting an injury. Is Bud even active? I know he was on IR for a while.
Oh, well, then that will make it a moot point.
Well, maybe TJ won't get any sacks either if his groin's not fixed. So I got to go with TJ. Any question about sacks relating to TJ, I'll pick TJ.
All right. Well, hopefully TJ has a big game. Hopefully he's healthy, and hopefully these Steelers can get back on some type of track and get a stretch going of some wins and make a push into the postseason. And it all starts Sunday, 1:00, Tennessee Titans. This is why you watch the game. This is exciting. Steelers fans, they still have a chance, not just to sneak in as a wild card, but to make it in as the AFC North champion if things fall the right way. But Jim, always great talking Steelers football with you. Listeners, viewers, thank you so much for supporting the Steel City Insider podcast. Please share with your family and friends. It does mean a lot to us. We want to grow this. We're not going anywhere. We're going to make this the #1 Steelers podcast. It might take us some time, but we will get there, and it'll be because of your support. You can check out Jim's work at the Steel City Insider and give him a follow on Twitter at Jim Wexell. You can check out my work at thesteelstudy.com and give me a follow at Steel Study. And we will see you back here for episode 15 next week on Tuesday, following what hopefully is a win against the Tennessee Titans. Jim, I hope you have a great week.
Well, you too, Jeremy. You can call us Kendrick Green and Dan Moore. I mean, we're going to build this thing. It's going to be there. Don't go nowhere because we're going to be back.
There we go. And then maybe we'll turn into Marquise Pouncey and Villanueva.
All right, man. I'll see you, Jeremy.
All right. See you, Jim.
Take care.